Well, if I don't say so myself, this is one rugged looking Honda. For 2024, Honda has refreshed the Passport, and this Trail Sport trim now has off-road tires, along with a slew of other off-road goodies. So we're gonna find out, is this not only a competition for your typical road-going crossover, is this a forerunner alternative? Pretty interesting. Shush! Fly somewhere else. Get off my lawn! In the TFL slip test, we get various wheels stuck on purpose to see if the all-wheel drive system can get us unstuck, and the first test is the front wheel slip test. So both front wheels are stuck in the rollers, rear wheels are on the ground. We're in neutral, let the vehicle get nice and settled, then into drive, and let's see if we can get unstuck. Gentle throttle application, and just like that, you could see a little bit of wheel slip, but the rear axle was engaged right away, and off we went. On to the next one. Next up is the diagonal test. So the left front and the right rear are stuck. The other two are on the ground. We always run this test first in the normal everyday drive setting, and then if we get stuck, we can engage in off-road mode. So nice and settled in neutral, into drive, off the brake, onto the throttle. Okay, so a little bit of spinning, but that trick IVTM4 rear diff engaged really quickly, sent power to the left wheel on the ground, and off we drove. All right, so most crossovers can make it through the diagonal slip test with little difficulty, but now we're on to the three-wheel slip test. This is where we separate the off-roaders from the strictly on-roaders. So both rear wheels are stuck, left front is stuck, only the front right is on the ground. That's the one that's gonna need to turn to get us unstuck. Here we go, come on Honda. Let's see what we got. Oh, wow, wow, wow. Excellent result. Nice, gentle throttle application like you would do if you were stuck in the snow. We got that kind of jerking of the traction control as it started to engage, and then off we went. Really good result. Now time for the hardest of the tests, the three-wheel slip test with one rear wheel on the ground. Now, for the vast majority of front-wheel drive, biased all-wheel drive crossovers, this is game over. But we might start to see where the Honda separates itself from the rest of the pack. Even Subarus with the symmetrical all-wheel drive system really struggle on this test, but let's see if the Honda has a super secret trick up its sleeve with the IVTM4 rear axle that can distribute torque left and right on the fly. So we're in drive, foot off the brake, applying throttle. Wow. Yeah, pretty impressive result. Didn't take a lot of effort at all, and that left rear started engaging, started crawling the vehicle forward, and we drove down. Very impressive. We're gonna try it one more time, but maybe we'll select an off-road mode this time. This truly is, I think, my favorite all-wheel drive crossover on the market, at least from an off-road standpoint, because the capability of this vehicle is just about unmatched without having a low range and a locking rear diff. It's amazing what Honda's able to do with the Passport and the Pilot and the Ridgeline that all use the same system. All right, into drive. Now we're gonna go into, we got normal snow, mud, and sand. What do we wanna do? Let's try sand. We'll give that a go. So a lot more slipping, but a lot more aggressive torque transfer in that rear diff. So much so that we were able to pivot the whole vehicle around its axis as it just shot torque to that wheel. And we actually ended up cheating. There was so much torque transfer, the vehicle just like yanked itself off the rollers. But here's what makes the IVTM4 system so special. It's the consistency and the ease at which it's able to get itself unstuck out of astonishing situations. A lot of crossovers can sort of make their way off a three-wheel slip test, but the Honda system is consistent and smooth every single time. That's what makes this vehicle so special in my mind. If you ever wonder how much torque that rear differential can transfer left and right, it transferred so much, it literally burned rubber on the pavement and left its mark. That's how much torque transfer comes from that rear diff. Passport on our Trenches off-road course. This is a standardized test we do with just about every crossover and SUV to see how the all-wheel drive and four-wheel drive system works in the real world. So there are these big divots cut into the earth, and then we see if the all-wheel drive system can kind of figure out how to send and distribute power when we're two-wheeling. So nice dry conditions today for the Honda Passport. I'm so glad that Honda decided to put a set of real tires on their Trail Sport Passport, right? These general tires are a genuine all-terrain. It's not some, fake all-terrain like we've seen in the past. We're just trying it first in normal mode. Nice gentle throttle application. It's amazing how quiet the system is compared to a lot of traditional brake-based systems, because we got that IVTM4 rear diff. Just taking it nice gentle throttle application today. We're not trying to race up it. Letting the vehicle try to figure out what to do, and this is just in the normal street driving mode, and it's killing it. We're purposely losing all momentum to let the vehicle analyze what to do. Okay, a little bit more throttle. This is where having that torque converter is awesome compared to some of the Korean competition, or especially what we find like with Subaru and the CVTs. Yes, the CVT could do that. I have done this in a Forester Wilderness before, but it's a lot more groaning. This is kind of sounds like your dad waking up in the morning after a long night out. Whereas this Honda's quiet, nice direct feel from that torque converter. Doesn't feel like it's skipping or missing. So yeah, I'm really impressed. And these tires are gripping great. Ooh, it's a little muddier than I expected, actually. We're gonna go to the mud mode, see if we see a difference in performance. Nice gentle throttle application. Oh man, that torque transfer is incredible in mud mode. There was no traction control intervention there. This is all that rear diff. It's almost like having a locker. That is crazy. There we go, finally, halfway up the obstacle, did we get our first bit of brake grab. That is unreal, Honda. Okay, now we're getting into the mud. So we kind of got rid of that top layer of sand, and then we got into the mud. Although, that's not good. We got an all-wheel drive, stop driving when safe to do so. We got an overheat message on the all-wheel drive system. And then we got a flashing light, there we go. Stop driving when safe, all-wheel drive temperature too hot. Okay, so the all-wheel drive overheat went off. That's the first time I've ever seen an all-wheel drive overheat in an IVTM4 product. That's a little disappointing. This could be an early pre-production car. Perhaps we're getting some disengagement because of that. But yeah, I've taken the new Pilot with the system through some much, much, much harder stuff than that and didn't have a problem. Now with the Honda Passport up on the lift, we can take a look at some of its mechanicals to see if the Trail Sport is more than just an appearance package. Now up front, we're going to find a transverse mounted 280 horsepower, 20 valve, 3.5 liter V6 with 262 pound-feet of torque. And that's mated to a 9-speed automatic transmission with no low range. So unlike, say, a 4Runner or, maybe even a Grand Cherokee, this vehicle is a single speed only. However, that first gear is pretty low on this 9-speed to give you a better crawl ratio. Now, underneath the vehicle, we do see some protection for the oil pan here. So there is a small skid plate, but one miss for me is there is no front recovery point. So the new Honda Pilot has this really cool continuous skid plate with an integrated recovery point. We're not going to find that here on the Passport. Now looking at the suspension here and the lower control arm, this uses a McPherson strut style front suspension, and Honda says they have retuned the dampers for the 2024 model year. You can see the front disc brake there and the little half shaft poking through along with the stabilizer bar. Now as we make our way toward the center of the vehicle, this is a unitary or unibody construction vehicle, so it is not body on frame. Here we can see that center mounted drive shaft with a little bit of protection, just a little bit here at the lowest part of the vehicle. And I also want to point out this shield as well, kind of by the power takeoff unit. It is a little flimsy, but it is nice to have at least some protection toward the center of the car. Now, as we make our way back, you can see the catalytic converter here into the exhaust system. And then here we'll find something a little bit interesting. We've got this little plastic guard that kind of deflects air around the fuel tank, which by the way is a 19.5 gallon unit. A very well-sized fuel tank, I think, especially for the class, which gives this vehicle a good range. The fuel tank itself is not protected. Instead, we have, your typical plastic composite unit. However, behind this little shield is some, let's call it bracing to give a little bit more protection toward that skid plate area. Now, as we make our way to the back of the vehicle, we'll find that the single exhaust port breaks off into two individual genuine exhausts. So it's not like a Volkswagen product where they've got fake tips in the rear. These are actual functional exhaust, albeit a 1-in-2 unit. And then the rear suspension is a multi-link design here with, of course, coil springs suspending it all. Now, above Alex's head here, we're going to find the Trick rear differential unit that makes all of this magic happen. It is unshielded, which is a little bit of a miss. Now, one thing which I think is interesting is there's a lot of unused space at the rear portion of the vehicle. You know, you can see the rear stabilizer bar there, but it would be cool if they offered a rear-mounted full-size spare. Instead, we've got a space saver mounted in the trunk, and then in terms of towing capacity, if we had the hitch, this vehicle would be rated at 5,000 pounds of towing. All right, now let's check out this new ride quality with these updated dampers. So we're going up the Logs Avenue course. These basically telephone poles cut into the earth at various angles. We're going to see how the ride quality is. Let's see if we have the ground clearance. Now, on paper, 8.1 inches of ground clearance is not very impressive. In reality, though, it's plenty for the vast majority of things. You know, we don't have a low range in this vehicle, but you lock it into first gear. That 430 to 1 ratio in first gear gives you a pretty good crawl ratio. So you know, it would be nice to have a low range compared to like a 4Runner that has a low range. It doesn't quite have that torque multiplication that you'd kind of come to expect, but we still were able to get through Logs Avenue and the stuff we need to do for a typical crossover, even with high range only. Stepping into the front seat of the Passport, there are a couple of noticeable changes for the 2024 model year. Now, the first thing you notice, gone are the twin armrests, replaced by a more conventional and wider center console. Honda says this is for comfort and convenience. It is large, it is deep, and it is wide, but I wouldn't call it particularly squishy. Now, beyond that, you will notice the same 9-speed transmission selector that we find in the current one, but the wireless charger has changed location and rotation, so now you can fit 2 phones side by side, and we also have a USB-C port there. Now, a lot of folks thought that the Passport was going to get the updated interior from the new Pilot for the 2024 refresh. We didn't get that. So here along the center of the dashboard, we're going to find the same 9-inch infotainment screen as 2023. We don't quite have that cool new premium look of the new Pilot, but it's still a very functional, easy to use interior, and it's nicely equipped as well. We have a 2-zone automatic climate control system here with rear settings integrated along the bottom, dual heated seats, this nice little useful cubby here, and the 9-inch infotainment system is easy to use, Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, great colors, and of course the ever wanted volume knob. Now moving to the steering wheel, really lovely 4-spoke steering wheel with the perforated finish along the edges, feels great in the hand. We have all the controls for the Honda Sensing suite of safety technology on the steering wheel, adaptive cruise control, lane centering, all of that functionality is incorporated into the steering wheel. And then in terms of gauge cluster, we have a 7-inch TFT display with physical dials along the edges, which is still a nice touch. I like me some physical dials. Only other complaint in here is didn't get a large sunroof in this 2024 refresh. We still have a relatively small unit, but that does help for rear seat headroom, which we'll find out in a second here. Now, stepping into the rear seat of the Honda Passport, a lot of great features for rear passengers. First of all, 6 feet tall, this is my driving position, good legroom, and even better headroom. Not an issue back here whatsoever. And another nice feature is, because this vehicle is quite wide, we also have a comfortable middle seat, which you don't typically find. Now, the floor nearly flat, which is great for if you're carrying 5 people in this vehicle. We also have 2 USB-C ports back here, along with a 115-volt outlet, which comes down there. We've got 2 cup holders in each door, along with the little shade, and if that's not enough for you, also just a little bit of recline out of these rear seats. Popping open the power liftgate in this Passport, we're going to find a truly enormous trunk area. Now, the Passport, of course, is 2 rows only, competes with vehicles like the Volkswagen Atlas Crossport. You know, you might cross-shop this with like a Toyota Venza, maybe even something like a Subaru Outback, but the space back here is very impressive. 44 cubic feet with the seats up. Now, at the push of a button, we can fold the seats down. It is a 60-40 split, which you can see there, and that's going to increase the volume to 77 cubic feet, or if you want to go to the full max, apparently up to 100, depending on how you measure it. And now, some other nice features back here. We do lift up the floor. Good size cubby for keeping things out of sight, out of mind, if you want to keep some safety or recovery gear back there. And then if you lift up the whole floor, you are going to find a spare tire. Now, it's not a full-size spare, which is a little bit of a miss. It is a temporary donut, but that's still better than what you'll find in a lot of modern cars. All right, now let's go to some more tame terrain and see what else we can learn about driving this Honda Passport. First of all, the acceleration. So I'm going to give it a little bit of a brake torque. We're on a loose surface here. About 1800 RPM, full throttle. Oh, impressive torque right off the line. Now this is a 3.5 liter, 280 horsepower V6, naturally aspirated V6. In a world of turbocharging and hybridization, this is a breath of fresh air. Smooth, linear, consistent power delivery out of this V6. You know, it's quite impressive what the acceleration is, considering that, you know, it's basically the Pilot engine, but quite a bit smaller and lighter. And just a really, really satisfying engine to drive. Now, fuel economy is not great. We're looking at like low 20s combined. I probably would like to see a hybrid, all joking aside, because you know, I think a hybrid would be nice in this class to eke out a few more MPG, but the engine performance from a power standpoint, and I would imagine a longevity as well, with that simple, albeit direct injected, but simple NAV6 is pretty top notch. Now, one thing which I'm not a huge fan of from a driving standpoint, I know they've worked on the suspension on this vehicle for the 2024 model year. It's a little too stiff for my liking. You know, it gives you a very direct feel over the bumps, is probably a nice way to put it, but it's a little too firm, especially when you start taking off through some of these whoops in the off-road terrain. It's just a little stiff, but it's a very quiet interior, very calming place to be. Honda sensing works great, good audio system. It's a really good all-around daily driver. Guys, let me know what you think in the comment section below. This has been Tommy, behind the camera Alex. We'll see you in another video over at alltfl.com.